Hello. Well, waiting to see, hear about this all on me on a little minor emergency I had to take care of. Hello, Shadowhawk. Late stream. Tree Goblin says, yeah, that's all on me. Yeah, fucking. Oh, okay. Well, uh, Rick explains on being late to his own funeral. Yes, maybe so. So, wow, man, take no prisoners. Okay, well, I'm waiting to see if Glenn is going to show up. Uh, Seems to be active. Haven't heard from him. Let me resend just to make sure that the link is good. I don't know if he can still make it. Him being over in the UK, surely he'll respond here momentarily. Thank you for your patience. Always love to have Glenn on. I haven't heard. I've heard from Texas Dave. He just said that he'll see what he can do about coming on. I had invited him as well. I know he and Glenn know each other and they're friends, and just thought I would extend the invite. If he wanted to join us. Of course, he's familiar with Hatch. They're first met them both over on Pops' channel. Two wonderful guys. We got Devil Flyer today. Oh, great. I was wondering. Oh, thank you. The magnets are nice. Appreciate that. I hope that wasn't the only nice thing. you know, uh, really appreciate it, Tree Goblin. Appreciate you being here every day. I know you get a lot of hell from some people. I don't know why. Seem to be a nice enough guy. Although, it's kind of like John Chin said about me, a little snarky out in the chat. I think that's the words he used for me. It's like, oh, Devil Flyer. When I finally went on his show, he's like, yeah, it's been, seeing you a little snarky out in the chat. I can get a little snarky out in the chat. But I'm glad you got it. Everyone seems to have gotten theirs. I know Caroline got hers yesterday. She's over in the UK. Tatsu got his in Switzerland. Um, People hate it when I'm sarcastic to them. Well, it's the thing of it is, it's not like you and I just speaking. It's you're reading the word, and God, if I've proved it, if I've proven it, it's like, well, I didn't know how to take that. When it's just typed out, um, things can get misconstrued, feelings hurt, things like that. Whatever. I mean, it's different than just speaking one on one with someone. Again, it's a breakdown in communication. So I guess you'd say 21st century probably began in the latter part in the 90s, the very end of the 20th century. It was probably a thing then. I don't know. I wasn't on the internet then. Although the first computers I worked on pre-internet were back in high school. Uh, Back in the early 80s. So, but the internet coming around 95 changed everything. I guess my 95 for most people. Glenn seems to be active on. We may just have to reschedule. I don't know, and that's entirely my fault. Some things you have to take care of at a moment's notice, and but yeah, you talk to try not to have any conflict of schedules. We're of course early. I haven't even set up the 4 o'clock shadow yet. Thought I would do it after I did this at 1 o'clock. My time, it'd be 7 his. I know he hates or pops in, is gracious enough to pop in like at 10 at night. Sometimes it's bedtime for him. Same way with a lot of UK people. I think you must have a host of rotating people, a tree goblin. Or you're like me, you don't sleep that much. Of course, if you get rest in between the moments, but it seems like, wow, I just saw him over here or there. Everybody's like, when do you sleep? Or if you stream, I mean, it's unusual, I guess, to stream daily. And if they do, it may be like one, very limiting hour show or something. But people assume you never sleep. But I assure you, I do sleep. I sleep deeply when I sleep most of the time. Glad you got Devil Flyer though. I hope you like more than the magnets. That was a late add-on. You can thank a man to be for that. Although I did want magnets, and there was like patches as well. Shadowhawk, I hope you're having a great day at work. Hope everything's all right with Glenn. Everything's all right on my end. No one died or got hurt or anything. Count your many blessings. I hope, let's see. We did earlier. Just curious. Had a good early morning stream, wake up stream today. I was glad everyone that joined us and watched some replay, which it looks like I think we were right at 50. It looks like 68 views now. So we gained about 18 since then. And that was 6 hours ago. There was a time change. Okay. Glenn says, yes, he's on his way. Very good. Guess I better acknowledge that I've seen that. There we go. Give him a thumbs up. All these emojis. Just wondering. Paul Milton's birthday today. Oh, he's got a Doctor Who. I guess I should say happy birthday to him. Okay. My eyes must be a little bit dry. Eyes are ringing a little bit. There we go. Silence that so I don't have an echo. And I apologize to Glenn Fleming. Hey, Glenn.
How are you doing?
Pretty well, my friend.
Are we live?
Yeah, we're live. We're live. Yeah.
Okay.
It looks like your sun's going down. A little evening going on there.
It's dark now. Dark outside now. And these dark rings under my eyes are because I've been up since 3 o'clock.
Wow.
So
Is there any particular reason why? Have you been out shilling the book, or you been
No, I've
working and
been just life and family and stuff and going around my head and
yeah,
anyway, you know.
yeah, yeah. Well, I hope everyone's as well as can be expected.
Yeah.
Is that sunlight, or is that artificial light I'm seeing in there?
That's a lamp,
A
artificial.
lamp. So it is totally dark there. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it would be this time of year.
If I put this light on, is that better?
Uh-huh.
Is that better?
Oh, well, it was fine the other way, brother. I just was wondering if the sun was going down for you.
The sun is gone. It's dark.
Yeah. Now, I guess it was later in the summer. It would be.
Yeah, it's 6:45 here. So
Yeah. Oh, it's 6:45. Well,
yeah.
Dave was an hour late yesterday because of the time change. He usually comes on every Tuesday, and there was a little mix up with the time for him. I did invite. I hope you don't mind. I did invite him today. He said,
no,
he would see what he could do.
It's your show.
Showing up. I know I met you and Dave at the same time over on Pops' channel.
Yeah.
Over a year ago, I guess.
Yeah,
so,
it's getting that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting that way. Now, for everyone that's interested in what Hatch is all about, this is the man, the myth, the legend of Hatch. What's up? And you all ran it together. What's up with the title?
Well, what it is I'll give you. It goes into a pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like if like you've got.
I'm sorry. There we go.
You can see that.
Yeah. Now, is this a proof you're showing, or?
Yeah, this is my
okay
pre-copy.
Yeah.
But
that's going to be actual size right there.
Yep. It's A4 size.
Okay. Wow. That's taller than magazine? I know.
It's taller than the American comics.
American, yeah, even American magazine, yeah. It's probably about the width of a American magazine, but it looks a little bit taller in format.
Yeah, it is. It's taller and wider than an American comic.
Oh, it is wider. Oh, well, yeah.
So
yeah, I love the cover. How long ago did you do that cover?
Oh, I'll tell you exactly how long. I've got the original artwork here.
And date it, yeah.
Right, there's the original artwork.
Wow.
And the date, you won't believe this, or maybe you will. The date is, I drew it on the 6th and 7th of November, 21. So what's that? 15 months ago.
Yeah. Do you like to lead off with the cover, or?
No, I didn't start with the cover at all. No.
Okay.
In fact, I've got another page here. These pages are up for sale on the campaign when I launch it.
Okay, great. I was going to ask you that.
This one I haven't dated. Anyway, these pages are going to be up for sale. And you've got my, the color charts on the side.
Now you work in colored inks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you do the little color test there.
Yeah, just to test the just to see that I've got it right,
Right. Now you work on what? An illustration type board, right?
Yep, it's Dale Rowney, and it's watercolor hot press.
Hot press. And what kind of surface is that? Pretty smooth?
Yeah, it's like what you might call a mediums. It's not really
okay, so it has a little bit of tooth to it.
Yes, and it's not as I don't know what the word is, pitted as watercolor paper.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It does have a nice tooth. It does have a nice tooth on it, and I'm
fascinated by that. I tell you what, I really want to buy an original just to see what you're talking about. Now I have seen that brand before, but I'm just fascinated about that you were able to get such a load of that stuff.
Oh yeah, well,
I
showed you the photograph of that, didn't I?
Yeah.
What happened? What happened was I'll tell the people it must be about, I don't know, it must be getting on for 10 years now. 8, 9, 10 years ago, my local supplier, Collier Thorpe, they were called, Collier and Thorpe, they were closing down, and this place has been there ever since I can remember. I was buying stuff from there when I was a kid. It's been there a long time, but they were moving, and they were moving to another. They were closing down that unit. They're not going out of business, but they were closing down. So I went down just to see what was going on, and I was buying some materials, just some pencils, I think. And the girl said to me, "Oh, we're closing down," and I said, "Oh, that's a shame." And they were moving. They'd moved about 15 miles away now, you know. So I thought, well, that's a long trek just for a pencil. Anyway, she said, I just mentioned this, and she said, "Oh, well," I said, what are you going to do with your stock? Because they have this huge warehouse. And she said, "Oh, well, we're selling it off cheap." So I said, "Oh, well, what have you got?" So she took me into the warehouse, and there was all these art boards. I think you've seen them. They're about 60 by 40 inches of all this daily daily rounded board, different types. Excuse me. So they were all the boards I looked at were about £8 each. And I came home with about 60 boards for £35.
Yeah, which is still a fair amount, but I mean, for what you got.
Well, work it out. 60 boards at £8. Call it $10. That's $600, and I got them for $40.
Right.
I don't think I'll ever have to buy any more board again.
Did you buy them out? Were you able to get everything, or just?
I didn't buy them all, but I got. You've seen the photograph. I got a ton.
Oh yeah, you got quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah, and they cut them down for me and everything for no extra charge. And
wow.
So yeah, I did really well. So
yeah, we had an art place here. In fact, his son would work on billboards. You know, they had like a billboard sign early here in town, and older gentleman, maybe even his wife, I don't know, but I know because this was back in the 80s when I was in like college, maybe even high school, Binkley's it was called, and they would have things that no one else would have, and they were in the older part of town and had been there, had been established, and sometimes you could get some real deals there. You know, they had a lot. I still have, I think, surviving some old watercolor magazines. It was one of the watercolor magazines from here in America, and what they would do is they would rip off the covers and send it in for credit, which you did, and then they would sell me I think I bought them, you know, at a severe discount, probably $1 a piece. I can't remember. You know,
that day that I went there, I bought loads of pencils, erasers, ink, all sorts of stuff. I probably spent about 50 quid altogether, because I think I got about 20 pencils for $2. You know, it was just crazy.
Were you married at that time?
Yeah.
And did she like, what were you thinking, or was she like, yiddy, you know?
No. Helen's an artist as well, so she was egging me on. She was with me. She said, "You got to get this stuff."
I'm just blown away, because I know when you said 3,000 degrees on her kiln, I knew exactly, like, the massive sale. And that she has 3 of them. We're talking about the ovens that she fires her works in. Her ceramic works in. It's like the ones we used to use for bronze casting, although maybe different, you know, than the old rickety thing they had probably from the early, maybe even the late 60s at the university. But the thing was massive for heating up metals or whatever, your molds, you know, and then your ceramic molds, and then you would put those in the pit in hot sand, because you'd heat the sand up as well, because you don't want your mold to be cold and try and pour hot metal into it, it'll crack. And those things are massive, so I can imagine. And like you said, they reach a top, you know, 3,000 degrees. Just
That's half the temperature of the surface of the sun.
Yeah, you had to stand away from it.
You can when she has a kiln room, they're all in the same room,
Uh-huh.
and when she never has all three going at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
She rarely has two going. So even with one going, it takes about, I don't know, a day, 24 hours to get to
Yeah.
2,500, 3,000 degrees. And then as soon as it hits that, it turns itself off. It takes another 24 hours, 36 hours to cool down. And you can't go, you can go in the room, but you can really feel it.
Yeah.
And she sometimes leaves the door ajar.
We would, of course, doing that, we would wear protective wear. Does she just let it cool
She doesn't
down
go,
and vent?
she just knows exactly when to go in. She doesn't test it. She just knows that when she
Yeah.
goes in,
Is
it's
that
going to
part of
be.
your house, or is that separate from your house?
Oh, it's separate. It's in her studio.
Okay.
It's separate from the house. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know, even with a fireplace, they say over time, the heat from the fireplace can cause a fire hazard because it
Yeah.
dries the wood out in the studs around that in that part of the house.
Right.
So it becomes more.
No, it's
Yeah.
it's not part of the house. No, it's a separate studio.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she
Well, we had to leave it still. Well, I mean, we would let it cool down, but only so much, and then we would go in there while it's still hot. So we kind of wore protective wear. So that was kind of the difference there. She can probably let it cool mostly down and then open it up for her stuff, right? Because she's actually firing the stuff in there. We would just like use it to heat up modes and then take the modes out while they're still hot, put them in, and the buckets of sand. And we may have had two. I can't remember. And it was sort of in an open area, almost like a block type, and it was an experience. So
yeah,
I was amazed when you said that she had three of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she has a smaller one. So she's sort of got 3.5 really, because she's got three big ones, so to speak.
Yeah.
And one of those small ones, like a top loader type of thing. Have you seen those?
Yeah, they're round like a wash tub or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she doesn't use that one so much, because what she does is she rarely, like I said, I don't think she's ever had all three going at the same time.
Yeah.
But she has to pack it. She has to do quite a few pieces of artwork, because otherwise it's wasted, But she put Hatch in that cylinder, in that cone. Did you see him in that cone? Have you seen? There's a film on YouTube of us going into her studio.
Oh yeah.
To get him out and everything.
Well, now I mean, it's been a while, but didn't you show me? That's the figure she made. But didn't you show me one that she did by hand, or
she does it all? But she does it all by hand.
Right. Right.
She makes coil pots. She makes them like
olive coal pots. Yeah.
Instead of she throws on the wheel, but she's not a potter. She's an artist.
Yeah,
she does coil pots. She makes like a sausage, the clay into like a sausage and builds it up, and But she makes huge pieces of artwork. They're huge. They're about, some of them are about 2 feet high, and they're not. It's artwork. It's not vases and things. She does do vases, but mainly she's an artist. She makes ceramic art rather than pots.
Right. I think I still have the first coal cup that I made, and the cup I was going for as large as, so it's about the size of a vase.
Yeah.
Or as we would say, vase.
Yeah, she does pencil work as well, and watercolor. She's a much better artist than I am.
Well, up in Chicago, we've talked about this. I've talked about this with Shadowhawk, because he used to go there on his lunch break up to museum there in Chicago. And I went there several times myself when I would go up to Chicago, which was in the late 80s, it seems to be around that time, 89. And so I know I went up to see a Gauguin retrospective up there. but there was other times that I went. That was with a group from the university.
Right.
But I would go up there, and I saw Rodin's uh, watercolor, sketches and watercolor, and that would give it volume. His like gray tone, fill in of the figures. And I was like, wow, man, I've never seen that. I've seen his sculpture, but I've not seen his sort of preliminary drawings or his, and those things are owed from the late 1800s.
Yeah.
And it just blows me away that those paper pieces are still around. It's kind of like, it looked like big pieces of newsprint.
Yeah.
Which tends not to last.
They've still got Leonardo's cartoon. Have you ever seen that?
Oh, I'm not sure if I have or not.
I don't think this is sort of right, but it's claimed that he drew the first cartoon. I can't imagine that people didn't do that before. But anyway, and they still have it. But I went to see it was in London. It was in one of the museums in London a while back, and it's a cartoon. It's a sequential piece of art. There's several panels there, and it's 500 years old, and it's twice as old as your country. And
did they prescribe an age that he might have produced it? Was he young?
Yeah. It was. I think he was about. He was about 80 when he died. I think he was about 50 when he did it. I'm not sure when it was. 16 something. And,
and 80 back then was ancient.
Yeah. People were dying at 35.
Yeah.
And what you do is what they did in this museum. What you do is you go into this room because it's so precious and it's pencil. It's very faint. Then you go in this room and you press this button and this green light shines over it and you can see it. And when the light goes out after about 10 seconds, you have to come out and somebody else goes in. And but yeah, it's he was more of an inventor, wasn't he, than an artist, I think. But he did everything, didn't he?
They're protecting the piece.
Yeah.
It's probably light sensitive. If you show it at normal light, it would probably fade completely. If it was light pencil, like you say. That's amazing.
But to me, the preliminary work is what I like to look at. That's why I like to look at pencil work.
Have you seen that published anywhere, Glenn?
Yeah, there's a book. I didn't buy it. I was going to buy it. I was in New York, and there was the complete work of Leonardo da Vinci from the earliest drawings to the paintings and his helicopter designs and all this kind of stuff he was doing.
Parachute, tank.
Everything. And it was in there as well. Yeah,
submarine.
But I didn't buy it.
Yeah.
I didn't. I should have. It was a huge thing. I think the reason I didn't was because I didn't want to carry it around through customs and everything. It was too big.
Right.
But it was a wonder. I'm looking at coming over to the States this year, so if it's there again, I'm going to get it this time.
When I went to the Metropolitan Museum in Manhattan, I got one on Vincent on his work, and it is huge. It's like one of those art history books that you got in college.
Yeah,
that crams in thousands of years worth of artwork.
I think it's got to be that size. That's why those comic book artisan issues are so good, because they produce the artwork at this original size, don't they?
Well, he was very prolific then, according to you. And I know, hey, Marv, hey, Kate.
Marv, Kate.
I know he had, I know Leonardo is his name. Da Vinci is not. That's from the place he's ascribed to, like Mary of Magdalene.
Yeah.
Her name is not Magdalene. That's where she came from. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Leonardo of
we
Vinci.
Don't really know his last name or his full name. Very inquisitive mind. How do you, he's been called genius. Would you think that he's not necessarily on the spectrum or anything? How do you, what do you think his mind was like? You think it's just
I think that excuse me. I think the word genius is overused, but I think it applies to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know whether he was on any spectrums or whatever. I don't know about that.
Right.
I just think he was just I think he was like Tesla. He was just a clear-headed visionary.
Right.
And
I
he
was
could.
thinking autism, but I mean that seems to be
I think
more of a
I think we're all on the autism scale, aren't we? At some degree, all of us, everybody.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know. I don't see why it's. I don't think it's relevant really. I just think he's a fantastic artist, and
They say he wrote backwards so
oh,
that
he did that to be secret, but it can't be difficult to work out, can it? Would it?
well, but Glenn, at the same time, I wonder about that. I mean, yeah, there was probably that, but it's I invert things sometimes in either speak or words or letters. Um, it's not like dyslexia, but
Right.
I
Well,
just think the creative mind.
well, I did that when I started writing. I must admit,
Yeah.
I'm left-handed like Leonardo was. All the best artists are
Uh,
left-handed, and I'm left-handed. And I used
okay.
to write. I used to write right to left because that seemed the obvious
I'm
way.
thoroughly offended now because I'm not a southpaw. I'm a righty, but no, not really. Uh, yeah, I mean, I think my brother is left-handed, and yet I was the one that became the artist. He became the farmer.
You see, us left-handed people use both sides of our brain because I'm ambidextrous. You see,
I've
so
seen ambidextrous, right? Yeah, yeah.
so
I've known ambidextrous people. I think there's a special connection in your brain.
yeah.
Yeah, of course
Well,
there is in between the right and the left hemisphere.
but
That's.
don't forget that some people would give their right arm to be ambidextrous.
Did you ever read Betty
Like a
Edwards'
joke.
book on the right side of the
No,
brain? It was called Right
no,
Side of the Brain.
no.
No. Uh, you know, if her whole thing was if you can kind of trick your brain, like if you're looking at an apple and you're looking at it as a curve line to make the form of an apple, it's a form. If you cover up part of what you're trying to draw, you can trick your brain. If you just concentrate on the line and not identifying it as an apple or as a
But
building or a tree.
there is no line there.
Yeah, right.
Nothing has a line
Outer
around it.
edge, I guess I should say, to make your line, to make your representation of the object. Yeah.
So,
But I discovered that book early on, and it was quite eye-opening to me. And I did test her little theorem there, and you can kind of trick your brain into getting into that creative side of the brain, your right side. There was a time, believe it or not, I wanted to be a bohemian and totally stay in the right side of the brain. That's it. I'm going to be a bohemian the rest of my life and struggle for art and suffer for art and probably be poor all my life, but who cares? I'm going to create my art. That didn't last too long, but you do go through a bohemian phase where that's all you want to do if you're truly
I,
into the fine art of things.
I think the true artist would be someone that nobody had any inclination they were an artist, and when they died, they found all these fantastic drawings and paintings in the loft.
Yeah. I find the art of the mentally ill fascinating. There's been some just incredible stuff come out from the what they would call mentally ill people do. Just
Right.
fascinating stuff. I know I've seen books on it. Very creative. Not your standard fare.
No, but it's all abstract, isn't it?
It's been so many years, I really can't answer you on that whatsoever. No, from what I remember, it seems like there was some representational stuff,
Right.
but it was, yeah, I guess you could call it a little exaggerated or, you know, skewed. Um, Your artwork on Hatch, though, seems to be very precise, very graphic. Just for those that don't know, Glenn, what is your background in art?
Well, I've always drawn and written little stories. I wrote my first book when I was 8, but it was only 20 pages of an exercise book. But even so, it 8. I've always drawn things. I was really lucky, you see, being born when I was, because when I was a kid, people were going to the moon and things like that, really exciting stuff. And I've always been interested
Right.
in science fiction books. I started reading early. I've always read comics. I started on Dan Dare and things like that. And then
Now,
went
were
to.
you there for the Mercury program? Can you remember the Mercury
I
program?
don't remember it. No, I remember the back end of the Gemini program.
Okay. Okay.
I can vaguely remember the Mercury, but I was only
Yeah.
I was only 6 and 7 and 8 when
Al
those guys were going.
Shepard and the very early part of it, and Glenn
I don't remember
Ford.
Alan Shepard. No, I was 6 when he went up the
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah.
I did talk to him though later in 1993. I did meet him and talk to him.
Mhm.
But anyway, then I was I went to art college and all that kind of thing, and didn't really learn anything about what I did for a career. I was a graphic designer for 40 years. And
Yeah.
I've covered all sorts of things. I've done artwork, I've done cinematography, writing, painting, artwork, design, and photography, all those kind of things. But I've always had a passion for comics and for drawing comics. And in the mid-80s, I produced my own line in the black and white thing for a few years. And I've
Can
been
you
managed.
tell us titles of stuff that you've worked
Yeah,
on?
there's several. There's one called Idiom Presents, which was an anthology that I did with another guy. I wrote a science fiction comic called Citadel. I adapted it from my own science fiction book, which I still haven't finished, which I should do. And
Right.
I had another one called Dawn Squad, which was like Space Marines type of
Oh,
thing.
I like that name. Yeah.
Yeah, and we were going to do one called Ultramarines,
Uh-huh.
and we didn't do it. And then somebody's done it now, because somebody always does. But I left college when I was 19, and at 22 I was a studio manager in charge of 7 people. And it was a fantastic setup, because I would be in charge of the day-to-day running of the studio and giving these guys artwork. And then when I managed to get some downtime from that downtime, I would be doing illustrations for my boss, who was the illustrator. So what he used to take work on, if he had too much, I used to end up doing that, which was great for me. And then I was a studio manager a couple of other places, moved up the ladder, so to speak, got into print a lot and all that kind of thing. And then I had my own business for 10 years. And then I went back to, I was headhunted and went back to working in a studio, and then left there. And then since then, I've been writing and drawing. So
what was the hardest thing in your career, you think, to do? Deadlines?
No, I like deadlines. It makes you work. It makes you do it. But I've never been phased by that. I've never been phased with working all night, that kind of thing. The most difficult thing I found was when I was a manager, having to tell 10 other people what I wanted. I'd rather do it myself.
Right.
Because you get different kinds of. I'm not saying that. See, they weren't doing what I would call creative work. They were doing adverts and set things. There was no movement, but they'd always try and do something differently. And we were really up against deadlines, and they would do it. I would give them a brief. I'd tell them exactly what they had to do, only because that was what was needed, not because I'm a control freak. I'd tell them what to do, how to do it, and we should have it done in an hour. And 2 hours later, I'm screaming for it because the printer wants it, and they've not done what I said. Yeah. They did it their way, and it's wrong. So we have to spend another half an hour putting it right.
And the presses are waiting.
And the presses are waiting, and I'm in trouble because I'm the guy that the printer's talking to.
Are you? I don't know if you how you not criticize yourself. See what I mean? You get behind this mic, your mouth and your mind are not always connected, Glenn.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
Tell me
finding
about
that out. Once you get behind a mic, it's like, wow, where did that come from?
it.
I guess maybe you're thinking about, especially on something like this, the next question. But would you say you're an extrovert or an introvert, or none of the above?
I think somewhere in between. I think it depends what you're doing. I don't particularly like doing this, but when I'm on, I'm okay. But if there's any excuse not, if you'd have said to me 10 minutes before I was coming on, forget it, I'd have been happy with that. And I don't mind now I'm on. It doesn't sound what I mean. It's but I don't if I could not do these things, I would, if you understand what I mean. Because I don't enjoy it, but it's okay when I'm on. I'm okay now. But I'd rather. I'm not trying to get off the show or anything. I'll stay on as long as you want. But I'm just saying that I can. I don't like standing up in front of people and doing things. I don't like.
Right. Is it the
anticipation?
The anticipation of it in your mind, you think?
Well, yeah, I'm okay now, but early on, I used to be really sort of nervous doing it, telling people what to do.
I think it's the muscle memory. The more you do it, the more relaxed you get with it.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
I guess we need to have you on more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hope you will come back when you do launch it. I know.
Of course, yeah. Of course.
I know you're going to have the mail up for about 3 months, right? Is that still the plan?
I'm looking at launch at the end of this month. That's the plan. That's the plan. But
wow. Okay. So that's not even 3 months. Sign up.
No. Yeah. Well, what the thing is, let me tell you, the thing is that I know what you're saying about the 3 months, and it may turn into that.
Yeah.
But I'm itching to get this thing out because, like I told you, most of it was done 2 Christmases ago. And I've been doing other things since then. I want to get it done so I can concentrate fully on something else.
Right.
Because you know what it's like building these campaigns on Indiegogo. It's a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to work it all out, and it's just I just find it. I don't mind doing it, but it's just I could do without doing that part.
Sure. Yeah.
And then there's all the follow up, as you know, because like with my Kirby book. When I first went,
it's a necessary evil, as they
call it. When I did the Kirby book, it was great, great response. And then when I got all the packages, the Gemini mailers and all these packages, I went to the post office and I took about 20 on the first visit. And the guy behind the desk thought this was really funny. I told him, he asked me what it was. I told him what it was, and he thought it was really funny. But the next day when I went with another 20, and then the next day when I went with another 20, he wasn't too keen then, because I was clogging up his post office. He had two tills, and I was standing at one for an hour while they do all the different countries and filling all the forms and all that. You see, so the first time he thought it was funny, but after that he didn't.
Right.
But what I'm doing with Hatch, I'm having it printed in America, so that I did notice that one of the downsides to my Kirby book was that the postage to the United States was just as much as they paid for the book.
Right.
And I know for a fact that a lot of people didn't get it because of that. So so with this Hatch, I'm going to have it published or printed in the United States, and somebody's going to handle it for me over there, that side of it. And to get it signed, I'm going to do some special cards that I'll sign, and I'll send them to the guy who's doing it, and he'll put those in the book.
Yeah, I was blown away. Hopefully in the future I can do one on Jack Adler, who was the vice president of production over at DC Comics and he actually worked on coloring for Action Comics #1.
Wow.
But he's a name that hardly anyone knows. And I would like to see him get his
credit,
his just credit for what he contributed to comics. He was a photographer, many things. I have some of his photography. He added photography collage to comics. He was the one that came up with the gray toning in comics early on, and just an innovator. And yet nobody knows about him. I also have a lot of work from John Buscema,
Yeah.
which I'm sure you're probably familiar with.
Yeah.
And I'd like to do a sort of a tabletop book on him at some point.
Do it.
But in your book is like something similar. Your Kirby book was that I thought, man, if one book that should just go boom and do gangbusters and make you just a name
Well,
would
I am.
be because you had a DVD and personal. It was a
Yeah.
very personal project because you
Yeah.
met with Kirby a couple of times at great expense, flying from the UK
Twice.
Right?
So the Kirby, I'll tell people now, the Kirby book is currently with a publisher, so I'm looking at getting it published through a real outlet, so to speak.
Right.
So hopefully that I don't know that's happening at the moment. So
Yeah.
but I don't
You have.
know.
I have not read it, of course. I have not seen the DVD, which I'm still chomping at the bit to do. But I would think you get that out into with an ISBN number and all that, and you
Well,
get
it does have an ISBN number for that purpose,
yeah.
but it's it's moving. So we'll see what happens with it. But
I would think that if you put that up in Diamond catalog or something like that here in the States, that to where people could just go through there and go, oh, a book on and it's how many pages and it's DVD and all that you would have comic books at shops order and reorder that.
Well, Diamond would want too much.
Probably so.
They would. That's why I don't deal with them.
Right.
Because they would, when I produced Crikey magazine 15 years ago now, about British comics, they just wanted too big a slice. I'd have been doing it for nothing.
Right.
So.
Well, we were all excited in the early 80s. I got in on the ground floor of that. I was like 17 in high school, 16, 17, when I had my comic shop. And that's when, I mean, literally the first books that were direct books sold only in comic book shops were coming out. That's where I discovered British artist Brian Bolland doing Camelot 3000.
Right.
That was my introduction to his work, which was like, wow, this guy's an artist. And then, Alan Davis, didn't know he was British. I mean, so many great, Dave Gibbons that did Watchmen and Green Lantern. I read his Green Lantern stuff before he did Watchmen. One thing led to another. And that was the time I would say about 83, when you had big artists for the very first time. You had like that were being noticed within the field, like a lot of credit was going to the artists and the inkers and even some writers that were very, very prolific, like maybe Chris Claremont or Marv Wolfman or Lynn Wein, were being noticed maybe for the very first time. It was a very exciting time. It was kind of like, this guy's a celebrity, within the comics field. You had Frank Miller doing Daredevil, and everybody knew Klaus Janson, that had been around for at least a decade inking.
Yeah.
But he was inking Frank Miller, and weren't they great together on Daredevil? And you had John Byrne doing the X-Men and Chris Claremont writing it with Terry Austin inks. And, it was a great time. It was a slow time. The 80s, I know in America and around the world, we were coming out of the Carter years, and the 80s were slow, and comics were slow, but it really took off. Independence exploded. I think maybe mainstream, maybe it was just the time, the distribution. I know they hired Jim Shooter over at Marvel to get the comic books out on time. And that was a good thing, because they were late to the printers all the time with most of their titles.
Yeah.
And so there was a big upheaval time in comics for change that, when you study it, it's a fascinating time, especially for independence, like what you were putting out at the time?
I tried to send some samples off the 2000 AD to draw Rogue Trooper in the 80s. I didn't even get a reply.
See, Rogue Trooper, Stronum Dog, Judge Dredd, all of that was unknown to me. Over there in England, big thing in AD, right? Big thing. It was 2000 AD, right? Magazine.
Yep.
And A1, I think, was one.
Yep.
Yeah. And
there was Robusters and whatever it is and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Lots of Halo Jones, lots of stuff.
There was and then Marvel, what's its name? That was big over there. Blue suit.
Oh, Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel. Oh, Marvel Man. Marvel Man.
Marvel Man, right.
Sorry, Marvel Man.
That was kind of like your Shazam or your Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
I hate to make the comparison, but a lot of people do. The style seems similar to CC Beck's.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah.
And very similar. And yet you had your artists over there, like Gibbons and others, very familiar with that stuff, and it was all new to us. And like Eagle Comics, and I think Quality Comics that came out in the 80s. And the 80s had a black and white explosion of black and white comics for the very first time. There were independent titles. It was no longer just Marvel and DC. And I believe competition's good, Glenn.
Of course. Well, my Citadel comic and some of the comics I worked on for it was called Idiom Comics, my line, and they went into it's Forbidden Planet now, but it was called Odyssey 7 at the time, but it's Forbidden Planet. They were on the shelves there, and the couple of guys I was working with, we couldn't afford to do color on the interior. And they said we should put color covers on them, and I said no, because they'll be lost. Because you go into a comic shop and it's like your background, it's just a wash of color. I said if we do our covers in black and white, the whole book in black and white, it'll stand out. And they said it won't. I said it will. Trust me. And we all went into the Odyssey 7 shop, and there you saw them just stood out like a sore thumb. And they were next to Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four and all those things, but you couldn't see them because they were just a haze of color, and these black and white images coming out, and they look fantastic, absolutely brilliant.
It must have been a thrill. I mean, I helped produce something. Yeah.
So, I have one of my things. I have a lot of ideas about things, and I can visualize well. I can see, when I'm drawing, I on a good day, because you have bad days, I can see it on the page while I'm drawing it. I can project it and just put it on, and so I have doing a design background and all that kind of thing. I know what will be eye-catching, and I knew that these covers would stand out like a sore thumb, like I said, if they were in black and white. And they said, well, "What about the interior?" I said, "Well, you won't know what color the interior is until you pick it up. But if you can't see it in the first place, because you don't pick them all up, do you? When you go into a comic shop, you don't look at them all." So I said, "Put them in black and white," and boom, there they were.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I old enough to have the spinner rack, or and one at a time. What catches your eye, and you look through it as a kid. I mean, you thoroughly look through it because you're limited on the money, right?
Of course,
I can only get one. Okay, well, I want to pick the one. I was one that looked through everything.
Well, back in 1967, right when I was 12, I was going on my way to school, and the comic shop was called Pages, Paiges, P-A-I-G-E-S, Pages comic shop. Oh, it was more of a newsagent than a comic shop, but it had a spinner rack. And I went in, and right there was that Fantastic Four. I think it's number 57, the one where Black Bolt has his arms out. It's a yellow cover, and all the others around him.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that, and I had to have it, and I only had my lunch money, so I didn't have lunch that day because I bought that comic.
Yeah,
that's how powerful that image was by Jack Kirby.
Yeah,
and I had to have it, and I didn't have any lunch, so I had my breakfast, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the next time I ate was 6:30 because I'd spent me money. I spent my money on the comic.
Was that the one and only time you spent your lunch money, or were there other times after that?
No, after that, I generally had a paper round, so I had a bit of spare cash. So,
yeah.
So,
was it worth it?
Pardon?
Was it worth it?
Oh yeah, of course it was. Yeah, I wasn't going to die, was I? I wasn't going to die, so it was. I'm not stupid. If I was going to die, I wouldn't have bought it. But,
I've heard of sacrificing for your art, but not Jack Kirby's.
Well, he's pretty good, isn't he? So,
yeah. Well,
he's got some promise. So
yeah,
it was worth it. I don't really
quite
that.
prolific.
I told him. He said you shouldn't do that.
Were you aware at the time? I mean, I met people at the time when I was a younger man, and I didn't know the history of their careers like I do now. Now that I've read more things about comics, and some of these people I didn't fully appreciate. And if I could go back in time, I would probably have more probing questions for them, or interesting questions for them, than being like, oh, it's Jack Kirby or whatever, being a fan. But and sadly, I never got to meet Jack, but I probably should have. I was around while he was still alive, so I probably should have within the 80s or late 90s, somehow tried to meet him, because he was one of the giants at the time.
He wasn't one of the giants. He was the giant.
He was a colossus, wasn't he?
He was
striding the earth.
But when I was 12, I was aware of him because Stan Lee kept telling me, So, but I thought when I left school and went to college, I dropped comics. I stopped reading them, and
right.
It was in the 80s when I was producing my own line, and I was going to the comic shop to put the comic in. Get it in the shop, and it suddenly I remembered. I just wondered whether he was still alive. I didn't even know, because I knew he'd been in the Second World War and all that. So I figured he must have been getting on. And anyway, he was.
Yeah.
And I got his phone number and I rang him up and got on a plane and went to see him twice.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I wish. Probably at your age at that time, you knew what you wanted to ask him. Although, well,
I couldn't speak when I got there. I didn't speak for half an hour.
Well, it's that anticipation, right?
He kept asking me who I was. What's your name again? Because he's just having a laugh. But I was okay after a while. But I just sat there. Yeah. I couldn't speak. I was sitting next to this guy who's done all this wonderful work that that I grew up on.
Very simple chair, art desk, little table.
Yep. Yeah. Nothing to do with any of that. It's to do with what's in this and what you can get. You as an artist, you must know that the longest distance in the universe isn't here to Proxima Centauri, right? It's from your brain to the end of your hand. That's right. The longest distance, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
To get the idea down.
Also in writing, to distill down what you really want to say in the most economical way, the most concise way to convey what you're trying to say.
I think the most, when you're writing something, because I've written a few books as well, when you're writing something, the most important thing to me is to know the plot.
Yeah.
And because if you change if you're writing a story, and halfway through you put your hero in some kind of situation where they can fly to get out of it, and they suddenly fly, right. That's not. You can't do that. That's a different story. You've got to know where you're going. When I make a chart, I know I just rough out the plot, and then I write to the next situation.
Now you kind of storyboard it out crudely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I do. Yeah.
Yeah. But you,
Yeah.
like I said, if you suddenly introduce, if you're writing something, how can I put it? You've got to know what the people can do. You can't just suddenly have them swimming through the ocean for 4 days.
A man's got to know his limitations.
Yeah.
I believe is a quote from the movies.
But you've got to, if you change, and if you're writing your story and you change the ending, that's not good, because you're writing a different story then.
Well, if he could fly, why didn't he fly and get out of that situation in the first third of the story?
That's right. That's right. So you've got. I mean, you might have him flying, but you've got to write the story to show it, rather than change the story to fit that, because it's a good idea. Three months after you start writing the story.
You know, Clark Kent discovering his powers, but you've got to write it like that, where you just go along with the character and discover it, and that needs to be part of the whole story that you want to tell to begin with, like you said.
It did change, didn't it? Because he used to leap tall buildings, didn't he? He didn't used to fly.
Building.
I think they did. I don't think I've ever read the first issue. Is he an alien in the first issue?
Yes.
Right.
From Krypton. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wondered if that was right.
Just very brief origin. Very brief origin. You know, in fact, I think I have an Adler picture of that. It's a picture. You know, they used to reproduce in Treasury sides in the 70s. And it's a picture of where they reproduced Action Comics #1, and just a 1-page origin where he's a little child, you know, and he's lifting up the truck like was in the movie, and throwing around furniture at the orphanage or whatever, you know, and very brief origin, very compact. I was showing some magazines the other day. I don't know if you saw them that were in England. It was sort of a fitness bodybuilding type thing. It was called Superman before Superman came out.
Right.
5 years before it came out. In England, there was a magazine called Superman.
Right. And DC probably sue them now.
Yeah, they probably would nowadays. Yeah. I want everybody to see your trailer, short and sweet.
Okay.
You've probably seen it 1,000,000 times, but that's a great thing.
There's going to be another one going up soon, but go ahead.
So would you say it's a teaser?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who did your trailer for you, Glenn?
Me.
Okay.
I do everything.
I love the sound effects. It has that sci-fi feel to it. Uh-oh. No volume. Uh-oh. Back it up. Here we go. I don't know why that wants to mute. Where have I seen that scroll before?
Yeah.
Flash Gordon. Star Wars. I take it you did the lettering for Hatch?
Yes. Oh no! A friend of mine in I can't remember where he lives now, but yeah, an American friend of mine did the Hatch logo. Can I just say that film there was very jittery on my screen. When you watch it on the actual Indiegogo, it's very smooth. I don't know whether it was jittery on yours.
That's my internet.
Right. Okay. So that people don't think that when I said I do it all, it was rubbish. It works quite well when you watch it.
I call it choppy ass theater. I think what it is, I need to jack in directly instead of going through Wi-Fi. So I apologize for that, Glenn. I seem to make mincemeat of everyone's trailer when I try and show it.
So I urge everybody to go to Indiegogo and put Hatchwatsup in, and then watch it
Absolutely.
again. It'll be nice and smooth.
Nice and smooth. I know. I apologize for that.
It's
Now,
all right.
do you like monsters?
Do I like monsters?
Yeah.
Um,
I know you like sci-fi.
I like Frankenstein's monster.
Right.
I'm not really
A monster guy?
no.
Like a classic monster guy?
Well, it depends.
Oh,
Dave.
speaking of monsters.
Oh, speaking of monsters, it's Dave.
Hey, Dave.
How are you, everybody?
You all right, Dave?
Yeah, not so bad. I've just been over at my sister's today, so that's why I wasn't sure just what time I might be able to pop in.
I think I was late. Was I supposed to be on at my 6 o'clock? Because I said my 7 o'clock. Was I late today, Rex?
No.
Oh, okay. That's
no.
good. Phew.
Yeah, I was the late one.
I was late last night, though, Rex.
7 your time. Yeah, there was a time change, right? We had to spring forward an hour.
That's
and
right.
So for about a week and a half, like you said, Dave, it'll be out of whack. So
yeah,
yeah, till the British summertime.
Yeah, I can't wait till spring.
Me neither.
Yeah, I think last time I talked to Glenn, it was snowing there.
It's been trying to do it these past few days. We've had a bit of a covering, and then it's just gone in half an hour. What's it like in Preston, Dave? Is it?
Yeah, same? It's clear. Yeah, it's. I think we had snow 2 or 3 mornings ago, but it vanished in like a couple of hours.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know. You just think it'd been raining, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. I'm glad to say. I was going to say I'm glad to say I'm finally feeling better now, because the last 3 weeks I've been really rough with a bad cold and sore throat.
Right. So
you still sound a little deep.
Yeah, I'm still a little bit husky yet.
Yeah, husky.
But I'm a lot better than I was.
Now, have you seen Hatch, the trailer?
Yes, I have.
You signed up as well, haven't you, Dave?
I have indeed. Yes,
good.
Yeah.
I have signed up on the Indiegogo
on the campaign.
Yeah.
And you've previously have some Hatch books in your collection, don't you?
Yeah, I've got the first one. The first one. Yeah, that's the one I've got.
You've got one of these, haven't you, Dave?
Yes, I have. I've got one of those as well.
Well, all the artwork, there's 5 pages of artwork in this.
Yeah.
This story. And it's all going to be on the campaign for sale. Just black and white.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to indulge if you want to.
Is black and white your jam, Glenn? Well, I can't really say that. You like working with the inks and the color.
Oh, either. I did this as a to try a wash.
Yeah.
Just a grey wash.
You know what I like about it is the epic scale of it, like that one page there that's just divided up into 2, light and darkness, but you're not afraid of expanse. You're not afraid.
No.
Movies, Glenn, movies had focused on the moment. I can tell you're not afraid of focusing on a moment, of pausing, of taking. I think people of our age, and I know you and Dave are a little bit older than me, but basically we grew up in a time where movies took longer for a set.
Exactly. Yeah. This is what you have to do.
Clip, edit.
This is I had this conversation the other night with Helen. We were listening to Kate Bush, and I think she's wonderful. But what she do, her tracks on her last album, 10 years now since the album came out, I don't think there's one track under 6 minutes, because she lets the music breathe.
Right.
And this is the same thing as the films. If you watch a Stanley Kubrick film, he takes another 2 seconds, 3 seconds on that shot, and he makes you watch it.
Yeah.
Whereas now, when the editing, if he didn't edit his own films, all that delay would be cut out.
Yeah.
Like you say, and you've got to give it space. So that's why I did that. I'm really proud of that drawing.
Yeah,
like in 2001, there was a lot of space in that film.
Yeah, that's right.
No pun intended, but he focused on. I mean, a lot of people watch it. I don't like it. It's too long. It's
it's not too long. It's shorter. It's shorter than most films. But the thing with that film is that because nobody speaks for half an hour, people don't have any attention span. And when you watch a Kubrick film, you've got to watch it. That's the clue. Not telling you.
Yeah.
You've got to watch it.
Be immersed in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't go to the cinema these days because well, one of the reasons is because people are on the phones and yakking all the time. And it costs you. I don't understand how you can pay all that money and not pay attention.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to the guy next to me talking about when he went out 3 weeks ago.
You're
I want to watch the film.
Yeah.
Do you know years ago, you remember in Schindler's List?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you seen Schindler's List? Do you remember the bit in the Krakow thing when they made the slum, what they call it, the ghetto, they made the ghetto. And there's a bit, I hope I'm not giving anything away here, but there's a bit where there's a young couple and the Germans are coming, right? And they're coming up the stairs with the guns and they're panicking, and they're getting out, and he remembers something in the bedroom. So he says, I'll go and get whatever it was, some jewelry or something. And he goes back in, he goes through the drawers, and he comes back, and his wife's gone. She disappeared. And there's no soldiers. And he's just thought, what happened? But what I'm getting at is that when I went to see that, I was sitting next to these two guys who were having a conversation. And just as the German soldiers were going up the stairs to get these two, or to get anybody who was there, and it was really tense, this guy turns to his friend and says, did you put the oven on for the pie for when we get back? And he said, yeah, it'll be okay, it'll be nice, be just done when we get back. And then they both turned to the screen and they missed that part. And I'm thinking, what? Just go home and eat your pie. What are you doing here?
Yeah, you broke the tension.
But it's really tense when they're coming up the stairs, and he's obviously thinking about his pie. This guy.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking, oh no, get out, you know. So I tend to stay clear. I'm just a grumpy old man.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Well, that's why I like Sam Peckinpah directed movies.
Yeah.
Some of his stuff. He Ride the High Country or some Western like that is, by today's standards, it would be that long form that you're in the moment, you're in the patience, you're outside too. You know, it's a Western.
Yeah.
You're taking in the trees that are changing color, and
the
you're
vista.
taking in the vista of everything.
Have you seen? You must have seen Lawrence of Arabia.
Yes.
Well, when Omar Sharif comes out of the desert and that shimmering scene where he first appears, I think there's nothing there. It's all and it's the sand, the heat just shimmering, the heat haze.
Right. Yeah.
And then this figure appears, and it takes about 5 minutes for him to come towards you. He's on a horse, come towards you. They wouldn't do that these days. He'd just be there in 3 seconds.
Exactly.
But David Lean makes you watch it. He makes you watch it.
Right. And at the time it was, was hailed as one of the all-time great movies, right?
I would say it still is.
Yeah.
For cinematography, yeah.
The train wreck where the train wrecks, it's still out there in the desert.
Yeah.
It's still out there.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what, 60 years
I saw
ago.
a picture of that recently. It's still out there in the desert.
So they just left it there.
They never they just left it there, right.
The best part in the film is when they get to the Suez Canal or whatever it is, and when that ship goes past. That's amazing, isn't it? Remember that? That sequence? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and it's funny you brought that up, because I have a story in Devil Flyer #1 called Second Skin, and it begins with a man. The a short little horizontal panel coming in the Sahara Desert toward you, and he's just kind of like a blur with the heat waves and the dust blowing, and then a little larger panel, horizontal panel, gets a little bit larger. He gets a little bit closer, and then a third panel, he gets a little bit closer because I want to focus on that moment. He's a distant, and there's nothing going on except the guy's getting closer to you. You know, I wanted that build up. That was important to me. You know? That's what's lost in comics, focusing on a moment.
Another great piece of cinematography was Star Wars, wasn't it? With the Imperial cruiser going over the top.
The ship. It blew my mind. It blew my mind. It blew everybody's mind.
I remember going to see that.
I did too.
Sitting there, and I always remember I had a bag of nuts, right, salted peanuts. And I opened them. The film comes on, then that little spaceship's firing back, and then that point comes, and that thing must be about 600 miles long.
And kept kept going.
Yeah, and I didn't eat. I had my hand in the peanut bag.
Yeah.
For about 10 minutes before I actually put some in my mouth, because I was like, what was that? You know, this is going to be good. You know,
I know in my theater, you could feel it.
Yeah.
You could feel the vibration, you know, from the speakers.
Yeah.
You could feel this big skyscraper just, from the opening. And if you think about it, it was reminiscent of the old serial crawl.
Yeah.
Only going this way.
That's right.
And being solid, not words.
It was the perspective of it as that ship coming down.
And
one thing I regret was that I didn't go to see 2001 in Cinerama. We had it was a curved screen.
Right, curved.
A friend of mine went to see 2001 back in about 1969, and the screen curved, and he said that you know when Bowman goes out to the A35 unit on the disc when he pulls the thing out that's going to fail. You know that communication thing's going to fail. Well, he's in the pod, and you see him floating down to the disc to the dish, don't you? Well, my friend said that in Cinerama, he's there. You were actually everybody's head was turned to the right.
Yeah.
And as he went across, everybody's head just turned to the left because he went right across the screen.
Yeah.
And that must have been incredible because it was filmed in 75mm, so the detail must have been amazing on that.
Yeah, that became actually Merrill C. Cooper helped design that in the 50s. The curved screen.
The Cinerama,
You know, in the last few years in television, now they have curved screen televisions.
Oh, right.
So here in the States anyway, so it's become a sort of a prophetic thing.
Oh, I'll tell you what we're getting, Rex. I just read it today. We're getting drive-in movie theater. We've never had that. We're getting drive-ins. Have you seen that, Dave?
No, I haven't.
You know these drive-in movies that you see in these American films. We'll be able to do that.
Wow. I've seen my first drive-in movie was Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right.
And I had snuck into a rated R movie when I was 13. But on my cousin's advice, I would have never done it by myself. I would have been happy seeing the Disney movie, and I wasn't that type of person to sneak in. But he said, "Hey, you want to sneak in and watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre?" And I did, and I was like sitting there traumatized, regretting having done it. But send me to my Disney film. But yeah, I mean, movies used to be an event, Glenn. Now it's just like it.
Well,
you know.
Well, a few years ago, when 1992, I saw Christopher Reeve open my local cinema. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
Well, they've knocked it down now, and the nearest cinema to me is about 6 or 7 miles away. So I refuse to drive 6 or 7 miles, pay for parking, pay. How much is it to see a film now, Dave? 10 quid, 15
I've not
quid?
been for years.
Right. 10 or 15 quid to watch the film, to listen to some idiot next to me.
Right.
discussing the popcorn and the hot dogs.
Yeah.
I won't do it.
Now
I
you
mean,
can
I'm
say,
only a 5. I was going to say, from where I live, there's a cinema about a 5-minute drive away, and
Right.
it's got free parking.
oh,
Right,
wow.
Well,
But you still have to pay to get in, though.
Yeah.
and you got to pay to get there. You got to petrol and all that.
Yeah,
And,
true.
no, well, you have to do that anyway. But I just refuse to do it.
Yeah.
It's a shame, but you know, when I go to the cinema, I want to watch the film.
Well, what
Hates it.
I do is that was one of the reasons that I treated myself to a large screen TV glance, so as I could
Right,
get
yeah.
that cinema
Yeah,
experience at home, you
Yeah.
know. So I've got a surround sound, I've got a big 65-inch screen, and believe
Wow.
you me, you really know you're watching a film when you're watching it there.
yeah, Marv, that's a brilliant scene
Yeah,
when
The
she's
birds.
smoking. Yeah, when
Yeah.
you just
Yeah,
come, when you
it
just
is,
come
isn't it?
behind her. Well, it's like
Yeah,
the same in
that's right.
Psycho, isn't it? When he's going up the stairs, when
That's
Martin
right.
Balsam's going up the stairs, you know.
Or all that strange stuff in Vertigo.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, when he slips off the roof and all that
Yeah.
sort of
And
stuff.
Rear Window's a good one, too.
Yes.
And
But-
don't forget North by Northwest as well.
Yeah, the plane, the spreading thing.
But
yeah.
even his old black and white stuff, you know, he did
Yeah.
silent movies. I have a lot of his silent stuff. Of course, I grew up watching him on TV.
Yeah.
The Alfred Hitchcock Theater, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was the Alfred Hitchcock half hour,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the 1 hour as well.
They're showing them at those Alfred Hitchcocks now on the TV.
Right. Well, I've got the box sets.
Oh, right. Well, there you go then.
I've got
I
plenty
want to get the box set of the original Outer Limits.
You know, to get back to Star
I've got
Wars,
that as well.
Oh,
which you kind of talked about, Star Wars. I had forgotten it. I'd watched it because it was so many years ago, right? 1977. I remember I wanted to see it right off the bat because that's kind of my jam, right? Back in the 50s, it must have been Forbidden Planet or something like that. But
yeah.
Which even was an inspiration for Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek in a lot of things, like the transporter and things. But technology after Star Wars, I mean, you had there's been so many movies that have come along and could not have been made without them developing that technology and really the money that he took from Star Wars to develop and accelerate the technology that's used in
everything now. Yeah.
But when the Millennium Falcon took off into hyperspace, streaked off, everybody went, woo. You know, it was like we've never seen anything like this before.
In 2001, you know, when is it Haywood Floyd is going to the crater where the anomaly is, where the monolith is, and you see that little vehicle that is in shooting across. Well, that was done on a tracking set that Kubrick he wanted this. He wanted the shot, and because he was a photographer, wasn't he, before he was a film director? He knew he created the camera that did that, and the tracking device to do that. He wanted a shot. He had a shot in his head,
right?
But it couldn't be done, so he made the machine to do it. That's how good he was. Which is what Lucas did. He got all that money and put it into the CGI and all that kind of stuff that they all use now. And that's investment. That's good, isn't it? It's putting something back.
The other day was THX's anniversary.
When was that?
I like that early film, which he did right out of.
Yeah, was that 1970 or 69 or something like that? It was
made. It was somewhere around about then, wasn't it?
Yeah. Early 70s or I thought that was innovative. A dystopian type society, overpopulated society type thing.
Yeah,
of course,
there's some good classic films out there. You know,
great actors. I'm not. You could probably have the same script today, and who are you going to get to play it? You had the Steve McQueens. You had, you had actors of caliber that were either apprentices of people who had been in vaudeville when they were young.
Yep.
You had some true talents. A lot of, I know here in America, a lot of the people that became famous for their acts, right? Because early TV was not even saved. It was live TV. We do it live, and no one saved it. So we'll never see it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of like Doctor Who, you know, when you saw it and it wasn't saved, it was later erased. What a loss. What a loss. I mean,
but they have got,
it wasn't valued at the time.
They have got them now, haven't they? Because there was a guy, he filmed them on 8mm off the TV. And there was the BBC put out a point about this, and he came up with these things, and he was lawyers were involved, so he wouldn't get sued for filming off the TV and all this kind of thing. So they do have all the episodes now, but they were erased. A lot of the stuff was erased. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. And I know that they'll probably take that footage and correct it. You know, it's amazing what they'll be able to do that. Well, it's filmed at this odd angle here, and that obscured the image there, but they'll be able to straighten it up somehow and keep it from wobbling. Yeah. You know, like a handheld. I know I had a recorder and would put up and listen, you know, and we have a lot of the audio for Doctor Who because they did that. Yeah. You know, and some of them were into that and had more sophisticated. I know there was a gentleman that had probably the best audio, and they picked from the best audio. Well, there's these three guys that did that, which is the best.
Did you see? Sorry, go on. Sorry.
And they just take from the best and give you the best audio track that can be done.
Yeah. Did you see those First World War films that Peter Jackson did? You know Peter Jackson, who did King Kong?
I have one of them. I know I have one of them.
There's it's a couple of years. Did you see it, Dave? A couple of years ago. They colorized. They altered the motion.
Yep.
Because everybody walks funny, and that's just the guy cranking the camera, isn't it? So they leveled it all up. They sharpened them up. They colored them, and they got people who could lip readers. And put the sound of the guys talking on, because one of the guys has an argument with a German prisoner. He punches him or something, and he says, "Go on, Jerry, go on, I'll have you," you know, like this, and he just walks away. But it's brilliant what he does, and I think Peter Jackson's team should be given every piece of old film in the world to redo and colorize, and you know, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, he's restoring history.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've often thought that, why not lip read? You know, why not? I mean, maybe we don't have audio for it, but you can read the lips.
Yeah. And then they had actors doing the voices, and the Germans were talking in German, and
then if he turns and you can't see his lips, we often have a script.
Yeah.
To go by. That they can,
and also, these soldiers, some did turn away, and he does continue what they're saying, because you can sort of, obviously they say something and he makes it up, but it's all in context with what you understand what I mean. So he turns away, but you still hear the voice talking. You know, brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Did he do more than one? I've got one of them. I know.
I think he's only done one. I think it's about an hour long.
I have it. It was brilliant.
Yeah,
I did not know that part about it though, or maybe I've forgotten it. But I'm very interested in World War I in particular. If there was one war I would not want to ever engage in, it would be World War I. Put me in World War II. Put me in the Civil War. Put me in with the Romans, fighting the Romans.
Yeah.
Just don't put me in World War I. There's something about World War I that's just a slaughterhouse. You know,
have you seen the All Quiet on the Western Front, the new one?
Oh, not yet.
I have not. I've seen some of the new one.
You've seen where they've got the flamethrowers.
Fly Boys is a good one, and then there's 1917 that I have. I wasn't overly impressed with that, but I do have it.
Yeah, 1917 is good. Have you seen Dunkirk?
I've seen that.
That's good.
Yeah.
I
I've seen
don't
that.
think. I'm not sure if I've seen it or not, Glenn. To tell you the truth.
When did that come out, Dave? About 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a few years ago now.
What was your impression of Dunkirk?
The movie.
Was it done well?
Oh yeah, I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. Yeah.
It was very, very well filmed, I thought.
Yeah. Those dogfights, those planes are just amazing, aren't they? When he's flying along and all of a sudden bullets at the side of his plane. Incredible.
Yeah,
really
I mean, it really is amazing if history had taken some slight turn.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you could be speaking German right now. You know.
Well, I think if we'd have been speaking German, so you would have been as well with that bomber they had that could fly for the nuclear bomber. Do you know about that?
Oh yeah, and he had plans to fly.
He didn't have plans. He did it. He had a wing.
Oh, right.
You know, like the B-2 bomber. You know the B-2. You know your B-2 bomber is like a wing, isn't it?
Right.
Like a flying wing. And in the 40s and 50s, and in the 40s and 50s, you had the Northrop flying wing, didn't you?
Well, that was there's been flying wings, like, to bring it back around since Leonardo da Vinci. But you know what blew me away was a 40s serial, Dick Tracy, and they have a flying wing in there. Now it has propellers, but I'd say that's the stealth bomber right there in the 1940s. That's amazing. That one blew me away when I first saw that. And later Marvel did it in that first Captain America movie where he's fighting the Red Skull and he's in a flying wing. But they did it all the way back in Dick Tracy in 1940s, one of the Dick Tracy serials. It blew me away. I was like, I had no idea that and I know the Germans, were designing different styles. They were the ones that came up with jets, the first jets. Have you ever seen the bomber footage where the jets are just leaving them in the dust and flying around the bombers?
The first jet engine was British, was by a guy called Whittle, and he developed that in 1931, and he took it to the Air Force, and they said no, literally never take off. And it went, and the plans went in a drawer. And then 10 years later, Hitler's making the Messerschmitt 262s, which was the first jet plane.
Mm-hmm.
But the wing, what he did with the flying wing, it's a Junkers 18 or something it's called, and it's a B-2 stealth. It's got propellers on it, and this was the plan. The Luftwaffe built this plane, and Hitler wanted to drop a nuclear bomb on New York.
Mm-hmm.
As a statement.
Yeah.
So because the rocketry wasn't good enough, von Braun's rocketry wasn't good enough to get across the ocean, and they couldn't put it on a submarine. They wanted to fly it as like a hit and run. So what they did, they developed this flying wing, and they put a crew on it, and the crew were told it was probably a suicide mission, but it was only a test mission because the nuclear bomb wasn't ready. But they wanted to be able to do it. So they were told it was probably a suicide mission, but these Germans, they went along with it and they were satisfied with that. And what they did is they flew, I think it was something like 60 feet above the waves, really, really, really low, below any radar.
Out of radar.
So they took off from Peenemünde in Holland, and they went across the ocean 3,000 miles. On a dummy run, so to speak.
Right.
They saw the lights of New York City, so they knew they could get there.
Yeah.
And if they'd have had the bomb, they would have dropped it. So what they did was they just took some photographs to prove that they'd been there in the case they got back. Didn't think they'd get back. Turned round and they got back.
Yeah.
They flew 6,000 miles there and back.
Yeah.
To prove that they could do it, and
That's
Hitler was over the moon because the plane came back as well.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to lose them unless they were shot down or whatever, but they could get back.
They could get back when they had the bomb ready with the same plane.
Yeah, which was scary because obviously he would have dropped it on New York and things.
But now we know, and I'm sure this was suppressed at the time, labeled top secret. But the subs, the U-boats, they came on our East Coast several times.
Yep.
They were that close.
There's one story of a guy who was only 17. He was on a U-boat and he died. His U-boat went down off the coast of Gibraltar, right? And there was a program on the TV about this guy, this German guy. He's got all the logs of all the U-boat missions, and they found a wreck off the coast of North Carolina, a U-boat wreck off the coast of North Carolina. And when they went down to the wreck, there was all these knives and boots and stuff on it, And this knife had this guy's name on it, who went down in Gibraltar. But they found out that his submarine didn't go down in Gibraltar. He was on a top secret mission again to see whether they could get to the United States. Got into difficulty and it sank. But the coincidence or the spooky bit is that this young lad and the crew died. There was 17 miles off the coast of North Carolina. Now I don't remember the town on the coast, but after the war, his parents moved to that town. So all that time when they thought he was dead in Gibraltar, he was actually 17 miles from them. He was dead, but isn't that weird that of all the places in the world they would go
they could move. Yeah,
they went to where he was.
I did prison ministry. I'll give you another weird one. I did prison ministry with a gentleman that was 18, and he was captured by the Germans because when he jumped out of the bomber, he was caught in the slipstream, his parachute, and kind of snapped his neck, broke his neck.
Wow.
And he landed in a field, and the local German people with their pitchforks and everything, just like in the Frankenstein movie, kill the American. They wanted to kill him. And actually, ironically, it was the German soldiers that saved his life from being killed, by the local Germans. Yeah. And so they took him prisoner, kept him in this place for a while. And he talks about, I had to crawl, because I couldn't walk, I had to crawl everywhere, and there's more to the story, but his daughter gets married decades later, right? They moved to Germany and he goes to see them, and it's the house he was kept prisoner in.
Oh, wow.
How
is that?
It just,
yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. It just all comes around sometimes. Why Hatch, Glenn? Why Hatch? What are you trying to say with Hatch? Because he's in a world all of his own.
Well, people say he's me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Bit of a loner, I suppose. I don't think I'm a loner. But I've been described as one by some people, but I don't. I think I'm a person who's quite happy with their own company.
Yeah.
I don't like a lot of people around. But I'm comfortable with I'm never bored. I'll read a book, I'll draw, I'll do something. I'm never bored. So I think he's probably a bit like me. He's on his own. He's not like me, as I never shut up. He doesn't say anything because he has no need to develop speech. He can speak, but he doesn't have a language because he didn't talk to anybody. So he doesn't need that.
Help you out there, Glenn.
Thank you. And so
I was listening the whole time.
So and one, I have to say that this is. Let me tell you, on the campaign, there's also I'm offering 100-page artist's edition of Hatch as well, that gives you the genesis and origins of him as well. And what it was that when I first thought of it back in the late 80s, one of the reasons, not the main reason, but one of the reasons I have dialogue on it, because I wanted to do it as a newspaper strip, and I always think big. I was thinking, well, when it goes worldwide, it won't need translating.
That's right,
because there's no words. So when they print it in Japan, no words. It's just silent movie time.
Yeah. Are you a fan of silent movies or?
Oh yeah. I like all sorts. I like all sorts of things. I like them all.
One of my one of my favorites, as you probably know, is Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
I just think he made movies what they are today. He set a good foundation. He showed that it could be an art form and not just a laugh, a joke.
Yeah. Who was the guy? Is it Harold? What's he called? Who hangs on
Harold
the clock?
Lloyd.
Yeah.
Harold Lloyd.
He does all
Hanging
his
off
own.
the clock with the glasses and the straw hat.
Yeah. Yeah, and he does all his own stunts, doesn't he? And
yes.
Just
but
wonderful.
now wait a minute now. You got that wrong, okay? He's not really hanging by his death. That's an optical illusion.
Right.
Okay. He was only hanging a foot or two off the ground.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
There
that's
you go.
right.
Yeah. There you go then. He just ruined it.
If you ever look into that, he was never in any danger.
Yeah, well,
but he did do it kind of like Buster Keaton. He did all his falls and stuff, and Buster Keaton broke his body up a time or two doing those stunts.
Was it Buster Keaton where the front of the house falls down and he?
Yes, the general.
But he's in the doorway,
and that was dangerous.
Of course, it was.
He could have been crushed by that. Really, literally. Yeah,
it must have worked it out really well.
Yeah, and that one where the train's going across and it just goes into the drink. That was all. That was the most expensive shot at the time in the 20s. I mean, for forever it was. That was very expensive. They maybe about $500,000 or $250,000 shot. I can't quite remember, but that was all done practical.
Wow.
I mean, okay, we're gonna wreck a train. And a bridge.
Well, David Lean did it and left it there, didn't he?
Yeah.
So sign up for the campaign on Indiegogo and let's get it out there. And this is one of the perks, as you've seen. This guy, he's one of the perks, and there's another perk. There's lots of perks.
All right, wait a minute. Let me blow that up. We get a good look at that, the patina on it and everything. And that's a one of a kind.
That's the only one in the entire universe. It's It's not made from a mold. It's just as it is. I mean, he does have. People think it's a mold because it's got a line down the side there.
Is that an aviator's hat?
Yes. It's was it Amelia Earhart hat? It's even got a little. Yeah. It's got a little buckle on it as well.
Now, Hatch as a character, I mean, you said that you tell in an artist edition that'll be available on the campaign that it tells his origin. Has that been previously printed, or is this like new material telling his origin?
It's not it's not new material because it's from 1987. The artwork is scanned. Okay. But I've written text with it and everything, so you can read about it. But another claim to fame in it is that inside that book, as you've seen as Dave has seen in my book, Jack Kirby is holding artwork of Hatch in 1988. You've seen that, haven't you, Dave, in the book?
Yeah.
Well, that's in there as well. So that's it's that's how old it is. And he gave me a few pointers on it and said he's got to wear a hat and all. So I've given him a hat and all this kind of thing.
Well, I have characters too, like my bog-like character. He has no mouth, no nose. It's just, it's just like moss and stuff like that, foliage, right? So you have to. It almost is like a silent movie type character because it's easy to do a Kirby, expression. So much expression in the nose, the flare when you're nostrils, when you're angry, your grimace or your gritting of your teeth. And if you don't have that, you have to do it through body language, through the eyes, other methods. You have to think.
Well, you were saying before about deadlines. I see things as a challenge. So what I wanted to do as well was to try and improve my storytelling skills because there's no words to tell you what's happening. You've got to look at it, and there's a lot going on. So you've got. I mean, if you look at the cover there, if you look there, you've got Star Trek Enterprise. You've got a
and you do no narrative, right?
Well, you've got a B-2 bomber.
Okay, let me big in that. Yeah,
you've got all sorts of
you
stuff.
got little Easter eggs, what we call Easter eggs.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff going on. And if you look when he goes into the pyramid, you can see Elvis Presley there. Can you see Elvis Presley?
Yeah.
You've got all sorts of things. You've got Thunderbirds going across the top there. And this, see this here. Where are we? There. That is semaphore for Hatch.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of stuff going on. Yeah. And he's got his little Ankh and all this kind of stuff. And they're all looking at him, and it's just full of stuff. I just find it really
I like that you're not nailing it down, Glenn, because no matter, even if you had words or you had narration, we're all going to get different interpretations. If it's any good, we're going to get different interpretations. And if, like, I know that you and Dave are more familiar with Thunderbirds and that legacy, and even Doctor Who, even though I saw Doctor Who probably for the first time in the 70s. And it was probably Bill Hartnell, the first one. And then they did one serial in black and white. And what stood out to me was color was in by then. And so you rarely saw what I grew up on, which was black and white. And a lot of the early color stuff, like Star Trek, I probably saw in black and white because we had a black and white TV set.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah,
I watched the cartoon in the early 90s when the cartoon was released for the first time, probably since it was shown in the 60s on VHS tape. And I was like, wow, I never knew this was in color. Well, watched it, and the colors were garish.
Yes,
that's what really stood out.
Some people I knew had a color television over here in the late 60s, and the first program we used to go and watch Star Trek, and the High Chaparral, and what's he called? Blue Boy had those really blue eyes. Mark Slade had those really blue eyes, and we used to all pile into their house, drive them crazy. There'd be 20 kids in the front room watching Star Trek. But a great thing for me was that when we first got color television in 1971, I was 16 and I was at work, and I knew it was coming. I knew the TV was coming. The man was bringing the TV. And when I got home, it was on. The TV man was there, and Thunderbirds was on. How good is that? Thunderbirds was on. The first thing I saw at Thunderbirds in color on my own television was Thunderbird 2 coming into land. How good is that?
Well, a lot of the, here in the States, of course, but I'm sure it might have been there. I know here in the States, it was like The Invaders in color.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Or The Fugitive in color, which had started in black and white and then became color.
Well, when I was at school, we used to have the new the Avengers in color, and it was Linda Thorson. Thorson was after Diana Rigg, Linda Thorson, and it said it, and you could tell it was a different sort of sheen to the film. You could tell it was color. Yeah, it was fantastic. But Linda Thorson was pretty gorgeous, wasn't she?
Yeah, brilliant. I have all the Diane Rigg, and she was brilliant in James Bond.
Yeah.
In the Her Majesty's Secret Service.
That's one of the best Bonds, I think.
As a kid, I think so too now. But as a kid, I was like, romance, get married. It had its high points. It was pretty cool. But he just wasn't the first Bond, This never happened to the other guy. But it's, and then I have a appreciation for Rigg. That I didn't at the time as a kid, and it was you got to admit, Lisenby acts he plays a sort of, is that a kilt he's wearing? It is, it was so different Bond look, not the sophisticated Bond.
That's more Dave's line of kilt.
Yeah.
In England, we call it a dress. A skirt.
Yeah.
And we're still trying to work out why all those jocks wear a skirt.
But it really is one of my favorites.
Yes.
You know, and you know, I don't know if you know this, but Lisenby got to play James Bond once after that. Are you aware of that?
No. What was that in?
It was in I believe it was, and I have the movie. He's in the very first part solo from The Man from U.N.C.L.E. It's in the Return of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. A made for TV movie, I think, in the mid 80s, and he's in a sticky situation. They're going to kill him, right? Well, here comes the man driving in an Aston Martin Silver with James Bond, you know, JB on the license plate, and it's Lisenby. And he gets him out of the situation with all his missiles and machine guns and whatnot, what the car will do. It's brilliant. I'm glad. And I saw that back in the mid 80s, and I totally forgot about that. And then when I saw it, I bought it, I watched it. I was like, oh, wow, he did get to play him again. I was so thrilled for him, you know?
Well, if he hadn't have been greedy, he could have played him several times after that.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, if he'd just done one more, he would have really solidified himself as Bond. I think he wanted to go with longer hair for Bond. I think that was the big disagreement. He wanted longer hair to reflect the times and having
he grew
more
a beard, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really sad. You know, he's done a lot of voice work for DC Comics back in the early 90s.
Oh, wow.
You know, played like villains voices and things like that. So I'm glad that he's done a lot of things. I'm sure you probably know more about his acting career than me, because he probably did more.
He wasn't. He was the big fry man, wasn't he, Dave?
He wasn't an actor when he did the Bond movie.
He was a model. Yeah,
he was a model.
Yeah.
So I mean, that in a way, that movie still made his career. How many people get to act with Telly Savalas and Diane Rigg and all the others that were in that movie?
Joanna Lumley.
Yeah. Just a wonderful cast, wonderful story. I don't know if Telly Savalas made a good Blofeld. One of my favorite actors of all time in his own right was Donald Pleasant.
I'm going to say, you see, it's like, I think that Sean Connery is James Bond.
I do too. Yeah.
And that Blofeld is Donald Pleasance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And all the others are just
the scarring and whatnot. But you know what? I'm one of these that think, you know, they started out with the leader of Spectre, and you never saw him.
That's right.
You saw him. You saw the cat.
Yeah.
But they never showed him from here up.
Yeah.
And I think them doing away with that kind of takes away a lot of the mystique of it. Yeah.
Well, that's the same thing with Doctor Doom. Kirby created Doctor Doom,
right?
But he was the most handsome man in the earth. He had that explosion, and all he had was a tiny scar,
a little scar. That's what he wanted,
and that was it.
But others wanted him disfigured and like a monster.
Yeah.
But Kirby looked at him as just being, oh, it's an imperfection. I cannot deal with it. He was such a narcissist. Would you say Dr. Doom's a narcissist?
Yeah. Of course he is. Yeah.
Now his face might be scarred later. I don't see, you know, the whole origin story where he puts on the steaming hot mask. He doesn't want to wait, and that's got to mess your face up.
I would think so. Yeah, but that was a Stan Lee idea, wasn't it? Later.
Yeah.
The original one, he just had this little nick on his face.
Right.
But they changed it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Right. I've got to go. It's 8:30. I've got to go.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me on, Rex, and I'll be on shortly. Nice to see you, Dave.
Yeah,
I hope you will consider coming back after it launches.
I might even consider coming back before it launches.
Hey, there we go. I always loved your New York City cat.
By the way, Glenn, I was just going to say I am still sorting out that interview with Mike.
Get it done quick. I need it now.
I'm doing my best.
I need it now. Now. It's got to
Hey, look.
I shall endeavour to get it done in the next few days for you.
Fantastic. Right.
All right.
Thanks, Rex. Thanks, Dave. I'll see you both soon. Take it easy.
Yeah.
And I do apologize for for the snafu at the beginning.
It's not your fault. Indiegogo, everybody, sign
Yeah.
up. Oh, I must add, important. If you sign up, you get your name in a hat to win some original artwork.
Yeah, I'm already signed up. I'm
Dave
signed
signed
up. I'm
I
signed up.
love that. I love the story already. A pyramid, a place of mystery, but you
Yep.
make it fun with all the little Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Because there's no dialogue, I wanted to do the storytelling, so they'll put a lot of information in there, and you don't have to, but I'm hoping that people will look at it closely and see things. There's a Dalek in there. There's all sorts of stuff going on.
Yeah,
It's a very visual.
You're focusing on the moment. That's
Sorry?
a way you can get them to focus on the artwork longer and on the moment.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Right, I'm off. Thanks a lot.
Take
you,
care.
Glenn.
Have a good evening, and I'll see you later.
You too. Bye.
See ya.
See you later.
Well, Dave, thanks for coming in. Hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been here sooner, but like I say, I just got delayed a bit at my sister's today.
Yeah. Well, I was delayed for about the first 35 minutes. Or 30 minutes, and I was trying to get Dave or see if Glenn wanted to reschedule or still do it. And he was gracious enough to go about a couple hours with us. So,
Yeah.
And then
that's good.
And I know you've been on many streams with him, so I thought I would invite you as well.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
You have a lot to add to the conversation because you're both Britishers, right?
That's right. And like I say, I haven't seen Glenn on here for quite a while, so it's nice to catch up with him,
Have you met Glenn in person?
Yes, I have indeed.
Okay.
He came over to pay me a visit a few years back now.
Oh, that's great.
He has a standing invitation to come back again. So I have actually seen him. I think I've seen him twice.
Now, you're Scottish, though, really, right?
I was born in Scotland, yeah.
You were born in Scotland. Yeah.
I was born in Scotland, but I've lived in England. I moved to England when I was 15.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So that's a long time.
What's the difference? What's
the
the
accent.
big difference?
The accent. Yeah. Definitely the accent.
Yeah. Did people make fun of you for your accent when you first
got
there?
They did when I moved down here, yeah.
You probably worked that out of your speech now, though, haven't you?
Yeah, it's all gone. It's all gone.
All gone? Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely all gone now.
But Scotland's a beautiful country, isn't it?
Yeah, there's some nice places up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some nice.
You ever go back?
Yes, I have some cousins that live up that way, so I've seen them and paid them a few visits over the past few years. So yeah. I try to get back up there every 2 or 3 years if I can. For a holiday or to pay them a visit.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, and I know now is Wales up there?
No, Wales is from where I am now. I'm in the northwest of England, so Wales is about an hour's drive, an hour and a half's drive from here. But it's south. It's kind of southwest.
Okay, I know a lot of your TV broadcastings comes out of Wales.
Some of it does.
But now some of it comes out of Scotland too, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Yeah, they've got Scottish TV, Welsh TV, and English TV. So yeah.
What did you think about Braveheart? Because that was all set in Scotland and England.
Yeah, I used to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole story about William Wallace, really that introduced me to the history of William Wallace.
Right.
And knowing his story.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think it won Picture of the Year it came out in 1995, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say it's going back a bit now, isn't it? That 95.
Well, you've seen Spartacus with Kirk Douglas that was made decades early in the 50s. The fight scenes, where the brutality of it reminded me of Spartacus. There's one where they chop off this guy's arm and the blood spurt, which was was pretty low tech at the time, but must have been shocking to audience back in the 50s when they saw that.
That's it.
But I just got a Spartacus vibe off that movie in the fight scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some good films. There's some good films around.
Yeah.
From the past.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
not a lot of them centering around Scotland, though.
No, true. But I mean, I like, some of the 1950s sci-fi films like The Time Machine.
Yeah.
And War of the Worlds and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's brilliant stuff.
Yeah, some good films.
Yeah.
First Men in the Moon. That's another one that I like.
Oh yeah, the cracked surface of the moon. I have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the time, it was groundbreaking, right?
Yeah, it was.
Now it seems dated, but I love that. I try and put myself back. If it's a Chaplin film made in, say, 22, I try and say, okay, I'm back in 1922. No TV, no cell phones, phones, period.
Yeah.
I mean, very few cars, very few paved places. If it is, it's probably cobblestone. I mean, it blows your mind,
Yeah.
how things have changed very quickly.
It's amazing, really.
Yeah, and developed. Yeah. I just saw a picture of England in the late 1800s, and I was like, wow. Just the way architecture has changed.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of that was probably destroyed in the Blitz.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. And so just how things change. And it's amazing. There was one shot I saw recently of like a cathedral there in England. Everything was bombed out around it except the big old cathedral. It survived.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit like St. Paul's Cathedral in London. That survived.
Yeah.
And Big Ben survived as well. And so did Buckingham Palace.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So places like that survived all those bombs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, art treasures too. I know in Italy, like the Sistine Chapel and the Last Supper and things like that. Of course, they tried to cushion a lot of those from being destroyed if bombs fell close by and whatnot. It wouldn't survive a direct hit, but it's amazing we still, after World War II, we still have what we still have. Although a lot of art treasures, I'm sure, were lost during that time.
Yeah,
I mean, the Nazis really took a bunch of that, and not all, and a lot of it was burned, unfortunately.
That's true.
Toward the end of the war. Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a break.
I was just going to take a break here, and I was just going to say hello to Shadow because he left a message before. He was just saying hello, Texas Dave. So
he hadn't made it home from work, but he should be getting pretty close to getting home from work because coming up on like 20 minutes away, and I'll be doing my daily 4 o'clock shadow show. So
well, have a good show. Have a good show.
Well, appreciate it, Dave. Appreciate you coming in here. Going to take a quick break, and we'll be back on the 4 o'clock shadow as soon as I can set it up and let Abby out. She's been dying this whole time.
Well, as you can see, I've got a cat to take care of.
Oh yeah, better feed that cat here pretty soon.
Yeah, because we've been out all day. Obviously, I left her some food before I went out, but now she's kind of like wanting a bit more. So,
well, thank you for joining us, and thank you, chat, for joining us. If you've already left, appreciate it. If you're still hanging with us, appreciate it. We'll see you in about 20 minutes. Take care.
And I'll see you next Tuesday. Yeah, keep collecting, and I'll see you next Tuesday, all being well.
Okay.
Okay. Cheers, Rex.
I guess I better hit end.
Okay.